Hey everyone, welcome back. This video is for my landscape photographers friends. Did you ever get low contrast, foggy, hazy images like this, or this, or this? And then in Lightroom you started tweaking the dehaze slider to bring details out of the atmospheric haze, but you ended up with poor results like this. Before to deep dive into Lightroom, just a quick reminder of what the atmospheric haze is. Haze is an integral part of landscape photography. You can basically have to deal with two types of haze: fog, which is a cloud that reaches ground level, and mist forms when water droplets are suspended in the air. Haze removes most of the contrast from your photos, and that's what gives them the flat, washed out look. The phenomenon of haze is even more pronounced when you use a telephoto lens, for example. There are different approaches to tackle the haze, but contrast is for sure one that will make the biggest difference in your shots. And in a minute I will show you my super favorite approach to kill the haze and get an amazing punchy image. We have many different ways to add contrast to an image, and I have a few examples here of very hazy images that I shot in the Dolomites, and I already created a virtual copy for each one of my reference shots, so at the end of the video we can compare the results we achieved using different techniques. On my regular workflow I tend to use less global adjustments as I can. I very much prefer attacking specific areas of the image with target local adjustments. So I've come up with a totally different approach using the graduated filter in an unconventional way together with the luminance range masks. Let me show you. I selected this extreme example of a hazy image that I shot with a telephoto lens on a rainy day in Iceland. I think it's a great example to see how effective can be this editing approach. I'm gonna create 3 graduated filters outside, just outside the canvas in order to have the adjustments applied to the entire image. Let me zoom out a little bit. I basically want to split the range tones into 3 bands: shadows, midtones, and highlights. So to do that, I select the graduated filter tool, and then I left click right here and holding the shift key to keep the filter straight. This one will be for the shadows, and then I'm gonna create the second one for the midtones and the third one for the highlights. Okay, let's move to the shadows, and now I'm gonna target the 3 different ranges using the luminance range mask. There. Arranging these 2 indicators to restrict each range. I already tested the values to be quicker along with the demonstration, so let's bring this one for the shadows around to 22. Okay, and then with the keyboard key O, I can show or hide local adjustment mask overlay. Okay, then I'm gonna start increasing the contrast, moving the exposure slider. I'm gonna bring the value around to 92. And then I'm going to increase a little bit the contrast. I'm going to decrease also the blacks around a value of 40-ish, 41. And then I can increase a little bit the dehaze, just to get rid a little bit of the glare of this area here. Okay, a little bit more there. Okay, we darken the shadow without changing the highlights and midtones. The range mask here limits the effect of the adjustment to the dark levels range. Usually the foreground is clearer with great contrast and the background is hazy with a huge lack of contrast. If I turn off the adjustment, we can clearly see that here we have more haze than here. Okay, turn on again, and then so with this approach I'm able to apply a target amount of adjustments for each specific area, preserving the feeling of depth of the landscape. Then with the smoothness slider, okay, I will adjust the softness of the transition in order to avoid any obvious artifacts on the transition areas. I suggest tweaking this value by eye and maybe zooming at 100% to be even more precise. I think usually it's not a great idea to move too much towards the left. Otherwise, we start to see some artifacts here, and the transition is quite edgy. So I much prefer stay around these values, about in the middle, right? Okay, let's move to the midtones. Okay, I'm gonna to activate the range mask. Let's adjust the range. As I said before, I already found the sweet spot for these two indicators, and that's okay. So I'm going to decrease the exposure like that. Increase the whites a little bit there. Actually, I'm creating contrast working just with the exposure and whites without using the specific contrast slider. Then I'm going to reduce a little bit the whites here on the waves. Okay, because I want to target this area with the next adjustment. So I'm reducing a little bit. I'm recovering a little bit of the highlights, and then I'm going to increase a little bit of shadows just to reveal a little bit of this area. And I think we are in a good place. And then let's move to the highlights. Activates the luminance range mask. I'm gonna move these values around here. Okay, so let's see where the mask is working. Right on the whites. Okay, let's restrict a little bit more, around 85 there. And hide. I'm going to increase the exposure about here. I'm going to increase a little bit of contrast and decrease the highlights. Let's see at 100% how this adjustment works. Okay, there. I want to keep the whites relatively high. I want a punchy image. Okay, and I think we are done. Let's see the before and after. The result is an image where the atmosphere looks clearer, more balanced for me, vivid, and quite punchy. So the before and after, and the result is super nice. I really like it. On the top left here, we have the original image, very hazy and flat and without depth. And here we have the ones edited with my approach. This one is edited instead using just the dehaze as a global adjustment on the basic panel. And again, you can clearly see that working with the dehaze globally, it can be very counterproductive for a pleasant result. Then we have the version edited using the blacks and whites and the exposure sliders on the basic panel. And the last one is edited just using the tone curves. This approach of editing is inspired by the luminosity masks technique in Photoshop, which I really like it, and revisited to be applied in an organic and easy way here in Lightroom. Sadly, Lightroom doesn't have the option of layers like Photoshop or the biggest competitor Capture One. However, the level of manipulation it provides covers the majority of cases. Okay, good. You'll probably found shots with Haze are a little soft and have gotten noisy during your edit. So after any of these contrast adjustments, you'll probably need to make some small noise reductions and add some sharpening. About that, I have an in-depth and very detailed video on sharpening here on my YouTube channel, so check it out. Let me know what method you prefer, and if you have any questions, as always, drop me a comment below. And here are the before and after of the images I edit using this technique. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Ciao.